Picture this, you are right before the final table of a major poker tournament and you look down at Ace King, one of the best hands ever created in the history of No Limit Texas Hold'em, and a poker fish goes all in pre-flop right before you. You make the call, they flip over the ace jack, and wouldn't you know it, the lucky fish catches his jack on the river, once again knocking you out of the poker tournament. Guys, let me assure you that even though these players get lucky sometimes, they lose a fortune in the long run by making the 7 egregious common mistakes that we're going to discuss in today's video. And I must warn you that a couple of these might be a little bit controversial, including whether or not to show your hand. Let's jump into it. All right, guys, number 7 is playing their hand face up. Guys, if there's one thing that poker fish always do, it is to give away the strength of their hand. I can read exactly what they got. Guys, the way to disguise the strength of your hand in poker is to constantly be mixing up your play. Let me give you an example. You've got ace king, ace of hearts, king of spades, and the flop comes down with the ace of clubs, 9 of spades, and 7 of diamonds. Guys, a lot of poker beginners, amateurs, and poker fish will just go ahead and make a big bet here. And who could blame them after all? You've got top pair in this situation with the best kicker ever created, so that makes sense, right? However, guys, the problem is that if you are up against any kind of decent thinking opponent who's watching videos like this, who takes the game seriously, they're going to read you like a book. What you need to be doing instead here is mixing in some check calls and some check raises instead. And now the frequencies are debatable. I've discussed this in many other videos here on the channel, but typically in a spot like this, I would probably bet out here 1/3 of the time, I would check call here 1/3 of the time, and I would check raise here 1/3 of the time. This makes it impossible for them to put me on a hand. And by the way, I'm going to be doing this with bluffs as well, which is absolutely crucial. But guys, the bottom line here is that if you are constantly mixing up your play like this, you're going to make yourself infinitely more difficult to play against, and you're going to get paid in a situation like this. All right, guys, moving on to poker mistake number 6, and that is pricing them in to call. Guys, let's talk about some basic poker math now, because this is one of the biggest areas of concern for poker amateurs, beginners, and fish, is not understanding the basic pot odds. Now, guys, let me assure you, you do not need to know college level calculus, algebra, game theory optimal, or whatever else you've heard on the internet these days. You just need to know some basic math, which I'm going to teach you right now. So you have 2 red queens, and the flop comes down with the 4 of diamonds, 5 of spades, and 7 of diamonds. Guys, assuming that the pot is $100 in a spot like this, it is a monumental mistake to only bet $25 in a spot like this. And why is that the case? The reason why, guys, is because you are giving them 5-to-1 pot odds in a situation like this, and long story short, that essentially means that you are pricing them into call with any kind of draw. If they've got a 6, for example, they've got an open-ended straight draw on this board. If they've got any 2 diamonds in their hand, even if they've got 2 overcards, like an ace and a king in their hand, they are priced into call because you have given them the correct odds. Guys, what you need to be doing in a spot like this is betting $75 instead, which would give them just over 2-to-1 pot odds, which is not enough for them to profitably call mathematically with any of these hands that I've discussed. So guys, the key takeaway here is that when you have a big value hand like this, make sure that you are betting typically around 3/4 of the pot. This is going to deny them the odds to draw out on you. All right, let's move on to poker mistake number 5, and that is going broke with top pair. Guys, if I could get a dime for every time I have seen a poker fish go broke with top pair, I would have millions of dimes at this point. So guys, let me assure you that top pair is a good hand, but the mistake that so many beginners make is thinking that it is a great hand. Guys, let me give you an example once again. You've got king jack offsuit. That is the king of clubs and jack of diamonds, and the flop comes down with a 4 of hearts, jack of spades, and 9 of hearts. Awesome, right? We've got top pair. Guys, the problem is that there are multiple draws and other made hands that are currently well ahead of our hand. Let me give you a couple examples. Pocket jacks, for example, pocket nines and pocket fours all have a set on this board which has you nearly drawing dead, and drawing dead is just a slang term in poker, meaning that you have almost zero odds to win the pot. Obviously not a good thing. There are also multiple straight draws with a hand like Queen 10 or 10-8, for example, and if anybody has two hearts in their hand as well, they also have a flush draw. There are also overpairs to this board with pocket queens, pocket kings, and pocket aces. Guys, I hope you can see here that while our hand is good, there are many hands that either have significant equity against us, such as flush draws, or have us completely smoked. So the biggest thing you need to remember in a spot like this with top pair is you do not want to be willing to risk 100 big blinds with this hand. And what I really mean by that is that if a competent player is raising and betting big against you, especially on what I call the big money streets, the turn and river, you need to be folding your hand. I talk about this, by the way, in my free poker cheat sheet, walking you through multiple step-by-step examples. I will include a link to that in the description below. You can check that out if you're having trouble in common situations like this. But guys, bottom line, with deep stacks like you will find in the early stages of a tournament or in cash games, you do not want to be going broke with a hand like top pair in a spot like this. All right, guys, let's move on to fishy poker mistake number 4, and that is over-analyzing specific hands. Guys, as I mentioned off the top, let me assure you that you are going to get knocked out of poker tournaments again and again, even with hands as strong as pocket aces, ace king, pocket kings, and so on. We've all been there. Guys, this is a totally common occurrence, because the beautiful thing about poker is that even a fish always has some odds to win. They got 5%, 10%, 15%, and this is what keeps them coming back for more. We have to let them win sometimes. Guys, let me give you an example from this year's main event of the World Series of Poker with $12 million for first place. When there was around 12 people left in the tournament, 3 players got it all in pre-flop with pocket kings, pocket queens, and pocket jacks. Now, pocket jacks ended up winning the hand, and that player, Daniel Weinman of the United States, is an excellent player, by the way, and he is full credit for the victory. But the other 2 players in this hand, guys, that had pocket kings and pocket queens, they did everything they could in this spot, but they ended up losing. Guys, this is just the cold, hard reality of poker, is that sometimes you're going to lose with the best hand. The thing to remember here is to not overanalyze the situation in a spot like this. If you got all the money in with the best odds, that's all you can ever do in this game, and we need to move on to the next hand. Speaking of that, let's move on to fishy poker mistake number 3, which is overvaluing ace-rag hands. Guys, I've made entire videos here on the channel talking about how bad these hands are. Ace-rag, which is hands like ace-deuce, ace-3, ace-4. Guys, these hands are largely trash, which is something that any good poker player already knows. Largely, the only situations you want to be playing these hands in is stealing the blinds. That's when you're on the cutoff or the button. And I'll actually put the poker image on your screen right now so you know what I'm talking about. If you are on the cutoff or the button, which are the 2 most profitable seats in poker, and it's folded to you, you should be stealing the blinds with these ace-rag hands. And also, you want to be going all in pre-flop in poker tournaments if you have 10 big blinds or less. But guys, in most common situations, like you see on your screen there, this is what happens if you end up playing a big pot with bigger stacks with ace-rag, is you hit top pair and you've only got something around 11% to win if the other player happens to have top pair as well, because poker is all about the best 5-card hand, and the biggest problem with ace-rag hands is they have a terrible kicker. So guys, play these hands cautiously. Do not get involved in big pots with ace-rag, and you're going to have a lot more success. All right, guys, fishy poker mistake number 2 is showing their cards. Now, guys, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial, but you should almost never show your cards at the poker table for the simple reason that you're giving away free information. Why would you want to give your opponents free information? information. Guys, you need to understand that poker is not like the movies. It's not about ego. It's not about showing somebody up and slamming down the bluff on the table. Guys, leave that stuff for Hollywood. You, as a serious poker player watching a video like this, plays against other good poker players on a day in and day out basis. Why would you ever want to give them free information? Make them pay every single time, guys. Don't let them know when you're bluffing or when you have it. Guys, I can tell you that as a 15+ year pro, I almost never show my cards at the poker table, and neither should you. Alright guys, so the number one fishy poker mistake that I still see so many people making these days is thinking that they will get rich. It's thinking that poker is a get-rich-quick scheme when it clearly just isn't. Guys, let me give you some of the cold hard reality of this game that we love called poker. 80% of people will unfortunately lose in the long run for a wide variety of reasons, such as tilt, such as poor bankroll management, such as poor work ethic, such as not studying their hands away from the tables. There are so many factors involved, guys. I've talked about them in multiple videos, but this is the reality, is that most people will lose at this game over the long run. And the other much more important thing is that only 1 or 2% of people will actually make significant life-changing money in this game, which allows them to quit their job, go pro like I have, traveling the world for over 10 years now. And guys, let me give you some recent data here to really bring this point home a little bit more for you. It is estimated that the average professional poker player in the United States makes $43,000 a year or $21 an hour on average. Guys, this is below the national average. And the other thing we always need to remember about poker is that there's no benefits, there's no healthcare plan, there's no dental, there's no retirement. Guys, I hope you can see the failure of thinking that you're going to get rich playing this game. Now, I don't want to be a complete downer here. There are some people who have made tens of millions of dollars in this game, but guys, you have to be one of the absolute best poker players in the world. And even if you do everything right at the poker table, you work hard, you hire coaches, you study your hands away from the table, there's still a good chance that you're never going to make life-changing money in this game. Guys, play this game for fun and also work hard on your game to improve, and let the money simply be a byproduct of your success. And if you happen to get rich playing this game, that's awesome, but chances are for most people that's not going to happen. Alright guys, like and subscribe if you found this one helpful. And once again, if you want to know my entire strategy to beat the small and mid-stakes games, make sure you grab a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That will be the top link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I will catch you next time.